The hull groaned as it touched mud. In the dead of night, deep in the winding bends of the Mobile River, a ship with no name slipped into the shallows. Its sails were torn. Its deck was scorched. Below, the hold still reeked of human waste, sweat, and the sour breath of desperation. The men on deck worked quickly, splitting wood, dousing the planks with oil. Flames rose. The ship hissed in protest as its secrets were swallowed by fire. There were no witnesses, no paperwork, no logbook, no official port of entry. The crew would scatter, the captain would disappear, and the human cargo, 110 souls, stolen from their homeland, would vanish into the swampy edges of Alabama's black market. For more than a century, the world would call it a rumor, but the Clotilda was real. And its story is one of crime, cover-up, survival, and rediscovery. By 1860, the transatlantic slave trade had long been outlawed in the United States. Congress had banned the importation of enslaved Africans in 1808. For decades afterward, the U.S. Navy patrolled international waters, intercepting illegal slavers and seizing their ships. But enforcement was lax. In the Deep South, where slavery remained entrenched, whispers of defiance lingered. There were men who claimed they could still run a cargo, smuggle Africans past federal authorities, and make a fortune doing it. One of them was Timothy Meagher, a wealthy Alabama shipbuilder and plantation owner. Bold and arrogant, Meagher publicly bragged that he could outwit federal law, that he would bring slaves from Africa to Alabama, just to prove it could still be done. To that end, he financed a secret voyage. The ship would sail under no manifest. Its captain would be instructed to burn the evidence upon return, and the operation would be kept so quiet that even neighbors wouldn't know it had happened. The ship Meagher chose was a two-masted schooner named Clotilda. It was swift, narrow, and built for stealth. To command it, he hired Captain William Foster, a seasoned sailor familiar with the Gulf and the West African coast. Foster knew the risk. If caught, he faced life in prison. But Meagher promised him a large payout, and Captain Foster, like many men of the era, viewed the Africans as cargo, not people. They set sail in early 1860, headed for the Bight of Benin, known to slavers as the Slave Coast. The Clotilda arrived in Dahomey, present-day Benin, at the height of the dry season. There, Foster met with agents of the King of Dahomey, who was then engaged in regional warfare and profiting handsomely from selling captives to foreign traders. For weeks, Foster waited as prisoners, men, women, and children, were dragged from inland villages to the coast. Many had already endured horrific marches. Some were wounded. Others were shackled and silent, trying to mask their fear with defiance. Eventually, Foster selected 110 people. He paid in gold and trade goods. The captives were forced into the hold of the Clotilda, packed so tightly they could barely move. The return voyage was brutal. The Atlantic offered no mercy. The smell below deck became unbearable. Heat and sickness spread quickly. Foster's journal, though later burned, was said to describe death, defecation, and mutiny barely avoided. But the ship held together. By July 1860, it reached the Gulf Coast and began slipping upriver, away from the customs agents and prying eyes of Mobile. Foster anchored in a marshy, isolated bend of the Mobile River, about 20 miles north of the city. There, the enslaved passengers were offloaded and taken to nearby plantations, quietly sold or loaned to friends and relatives of Meagher. Then, following orders, Foster set the Clotilda ablaze. The ship cracked, smoked, and finally sank beneath the river's surface, its charred ribs hidden beneath layers of mud and reeds. If they couldn't find the ship, the crime would remain a ghost story. And for more than 100 years, it did. The smuggling operation didn't go completely unnoticed. Rumors spread in Mobile. Whispers of a ghost ship. Locals spoke of Africans who didn't speak English or Creole, who bore tribal markings and sang strange songs. One federal agent got wind of the operation and investigated. Meeher and Foster were arrested and charged with illegally importing slaves. But the trial was a farce. The Civil War broke out before the case could proceed, and the federal government lost interest. With no ship, no manifest, and no political will to pursue justice, the charges were dropped. The Clotilda vanished beneath the river. Its story sank with it. But the survivors did not vanish. They lived, they endured, and they remembered. Among the 110 Africans smuggled aboard the Clotilda was a teenage boy named Oluwale, later known as Cujo Lewis. Cujo was taken from his village in present-day Benin, sold by Dahomey warriors, and crammed into the ship's dark hold. He survived the crossing. He survived slavery. And after emancipation, he helped found a community on the outskirts of Mobile called Africatown, built by former Clotilda survivors who had no way home. They cleared the land themselves, built houses, grew gardens, spoke Yoruba, preserved their customs. For decades, they lived in relative isolation, rebuilding a sense of identity torn apart by violence. In the 1920s, author and anthropologist Zora Neale Hurston interviewed Cujo Lewis. He was in his 80s, the last known survivor of the Clotilda. His memories were vivid, raw, and haunting. But Hurston's manuscript, Barracoon, remained unpublished for nearly a century, dismissed at the time for its use of Cujo's dialect and emotional tone. In it, he spoke of fire, of chains, of betrayal, and of how he never saw his mother again. For decades, historians, divers, and journalists searched for Clotilda's remains. Many believed it had been destroyed completely. Others thought the story was a fabrication, a myth to explain the existence of Africatown. But the community never forgot. The descendants of those 110 people kept the story alive, passing it from generation to generation. Then, in 2018, a breakthrough. Journalist Ben Raines, working with local historians, uncovered a possible wreck buried in the Mobile River. Its dimensions matched the Clotilda. Its structure showed signs of fire. The location aligned with Captain Foster's last known path. In 2019, marine archaeologists confirmed it. The Clotilda had been found. Charred timbers, iron fastenings, a ghost from history rising through the mud. It is the last known slave ship to reach American shores. Today, Africatown still stands. It has changed. Decades of economic neglect and industrial pollution have taken their toll, but the spirit remains. And now, with the discovery of the Clotilda, the descendants of its captives have something tangible, something real, not just memory or story, but wood, iron, and truth. Plans are underway to build a memorial, a museum, a place where the voices of the stolen can be heard and where their survival is honored, not as a footnote in American history, but as a testament to endurance. Because this was not just a ship, it was a crime scene, a grave, and now, finally, a witness. Thank you for listening to the Sunken Ledger. Subscribe for more true stories from the depths.